Good afternoon, students. Welcome back to the class. In this class, today we are going to discuss regarding uh, multi-processor scheduling. Fine. In the previous classes, we have discussed regarding different CPU scheduling algorithms, right? Like we are having what are the different CPU scheduling algorithms and what are the advantages of one algorithm over the other algorithm and what are the drawbacks we are going to find in that algorithms and how we are going to overcome those drawbacks. All we have seen in the previous classes. And today we'll be going to discuss regarding multiprocessor scheduling. So multiprocessor, as the name itself indicates, multiprocessor in the sense like we will be going to have many processes. So multiple processors. So multiple processors is nothing but suppose if you are going for a personal system, like you will be going to have a one processor. So you will be going to have one processor. So we'll be going to execute all the task in that one processor only. So here, if you are going to perform many of the operations parallelly, it won't be possible in the single processor systems. Like that's the reason why we have gone for the multi-processor systems. So in the multi-processor scheduling, like what it is going to have is like we'll be going to have multiple CPUs available. So instead of having the one CPU, you will be going to have multiple CPUs which are going to be available. So this is CPU 1, this is CPU 2, CPU 3 and CPU 4. Like this many processors are going to be available. So if we are going to have many processors, in the sense the best and the main advantage what we find is the load sharing. So this is the major advantage of multiple processor scheduling. So previously what we have done, like you will be going to have the single processor systems, like everything you have to do in that single processor system only. Suppose for example, if you people are writing an assignment, so if you people are writing an assignment, like if you alone are writing, like it will be taking much of the time to complete that assignment. Suppose if I have given 5 questions, if a single person is writing all the 5 questions and each question carries 5 minutes of time, like it is going to take 25 minutes of a time for a person to complete that assignment for a single person. But what I have done is I have been given 5 persons to complete that 5 questions. So within 5 minutes of time, you will be going to complete all the questions. Why? Because here, first question is given to one person, second question is given to another, third is given to another, fourth is given to another, and finally the fifth question is given to another. And each question carries 5 minutes of time. Each question carries 5 minutes of time for writing. So like totally it is going to take 25 minutes of time if one person is writing. If one person is writing all the questions, it is going to take 25 minutes of time. But what I have done is I have been shuffled the work among 5 persons. So within 5 minutes of time, I'll be going to get the work to be completed. All the things is going to be done and I'll be going to get the work within my hand. So that is how the multi-processor scheduling is important. Multiprocessors or multiprocessor scheduling is in a different way. Suppose if in a single processor, if the same work to be carried out, it is going to take 25 minutes of time. But when it comes with a multiple processor, like what is the thing is, we'll be going to share the load among all the processors that are available. So that if that process is going to take 25 minutes of time, like within 5 minutes, you will be going to get the task within your hands. So that is the advantage, major advantage of having the multi-processor systems. So this is the multi-processor systems. But when it comes to the single processor system, like only this person has to do all the tasks. This is a single processor. So only this person has to do the whole task, which is going to take much amount of time. But we don't want to waste that much amount of time. We want to get our work to be done in a very limited period of time. So that is the reason why we are going for the multiprocessor systems. So when it comes to the single processor systems, only one processor will be there. When it comes to the multiple processor systems, you will be going to have many processors to share the work. Fine. So whenever in this multiprocessors, like this multiprocessor systems are also called as parallel systems. Why? Because the task is going to be done parallelly. So if he has to do, single processor has to do, if first task completed, then only he has to go for second one. If second task completed, then only he has to go for the third task. But when it comes to the multiprocessor systems, all the tasks are divided among the processors, and all the tasks are going to execute parallelly. So multiprocessor systems we also called as parallel systems. So when we are going to use these parallel system, like we will be going to have the output in a very limited period of time. So that's the reason in nowadays these multiprocessor systems are very much used. So what is the main funda of this multiprocessor system is, so these all the systems are going to share a common memory. So these are going to share the common memory, and they'll be going to have the common processor will be there, which is going to give all the tasks to all the processes. So this is the basic funda of using the multiprocessor scheduling. So here I'll be going to show you the diagrams. This is the multiprocessor scheduling. So here we have n number of processors. Here we are going to have n number of processors. All these processors are going to share the same memory. So not only the memory, they'll be going to share the same peripheral devices. They'll be going to share a common bus, etc. Like this, they'll be going to share the things. Here, this operating system, they'll be going to have the operating system. That operating system is going to act like many processors. Like so by making use of this same memory, all the processors are going to execute the task within a limited specific period of time. We'll be going to get our task to be completed. So this is the basic fundamental of a multiprocessor system. You have to keep in mind that in a multiprocessor system, all the processes uses or shares the common memory, common peripheral devices, and common buses. That is the major thing you have to keep in mind. So that is how multiprocessor scheduling is done. So there are two different types of multiprocessors. Like what are the two different types of multiprocessors in the sense? The first one is the symmetric multiprocessor, and the second one is the asymmetric multiprocessor. So we'll be going to see what are symmetric multiprocessors and what are asymmetric multiprocessors. If you have observed the diagram here, these are connected in peer-to-peer model. These are connected in peer-to-peer model. So all are connected on a single phase. Fine. Here, CPU 1 has its own private operating system. CPU 2 has its own private operating system. Like that, other CPUs are also having its own operating systems. And all these CPUs are going to share the common memory. So that is the basic thing you need to remember. All these CPUs are going to make use of this common memory and this common peripheral devices. So all these, how many processes are connected over here, all these has to share this common memory, and all these has to share this common IO devices. So this is the symmetric multiprocessing. It means that processing of programs by multiple processors. Like here we'll be going to have program. So these programs are processed by multiple processors. Make the difference between processor and process. Processor. Processor is a CPU. Process is a program. Fine. That is the difference between the processor and process. Here programs are there. So here many programs are there. These programs, processing of these programs by multiple processors that share a common memory and that share a common peripheral device is known as symmetric multiprocessing. Fine. Here each processor contains a similar copy of operating system. That is the main thing. So each processor has its similar operating system will be there. Fine. All similar operating systems will be dumped on each and every processor when they are connected in peer-to-peer process. When similar operating system is there, there is a flexibility of sharing the data among all the processes. So all the processes are in peer-to-peer relation, so that they'll be going to have the flexibility of communicating with one operating system to the another operating system. So that is the advantage of peer-to-peer systems or a symmetric multiprocessing systems. Here what the thing you have to remember is symmetric multiprocessing is nothing but all the processes, all the programs, how many programs are there, all the programs are processed by different processors. Fine. Different programs are processed by different processors, and all these processors have a same copy of operating system. As they are having the same copy of operating system, they can communicate with one another easily, so that the task is going to be completed with a limited period of time. So that is the main advantage of using this symmetric multiprocessor system. Here all the systems have the all the systems is going to have same priority. Fine. Why? Because all are sharing a same OS. All shares the same OS. So same operating system is dumped over here, all the processes. So how many processes are connected in peer? All the processes are going to have the similar operating system. All these processes can communicate each other in order to complete the task very much easily. They'll be going to have the same memory, which is going to be shared by all the processes that are connected in peer-to-peer relation, and they'll be going to have the same IO. They'll be going to share the same peripheral devices when they are connected in peer-to-peer peer-to-peer connection. This is one of the type of multiprocessing systems. So multiprocessing systems are divided into two types: symmetric multiprocessing and asymmetric multiprocessing. Symmetric in the sense same or equal, whatever we can say, same. Here same in the sense all the processors will share the same memory location, all the processors will share the same IO or peripheral devices, and a same copy of operating system has been dumped in each and every processor, so that they communicate with one another very much easily in order to complete the task within less period amount of time. So that is about the symmetric multiprocessing systems. And next one is the asymmetric multiprocessing system. So when it comes to the asymmetric multiprocessor system, here there is a master, there is one master, and all these are slaves of this master. Fine. Only one master will be there, and remaining all are slaves of this master. These all are slaves. So here in asymmetric multiprocessing, we follow the master-slave relationship. So we follow master-slave relationship. So what do you mean by master-slave? So master in the sense which is having a higher authority. So whatever the master is saying, the slave have to obey his orders. So that is the master-slave relationship. In the same manner here, master runs the operating system. Here master is going to have the control of this operating system. Master is the one who is going to allocate the tasks to different slaves. Fine. In asymmetric system, each processor is given a predefined task. Not similar task is going to be given. Each system is going to have a predefined task which is going to be allocated by this master only. So master is the one who is responsible for allocating different tasks to different slaves. So there is a master processor that gives instructions to all the slave processors. So here is the master processor which is going to give instructions to all the slave processors. Slave processors has to abide by the instructions of the master processors. So asymmetric multiprocessor was the only type of multiprocessor available before symmetric multiprocessors. So this is how the difference between the asymmetric multiprocessor and symmetric multiprocessor is going to happen. When it comes to asymmetric multiprocessor, asymmetric in the sense they are not equal. We are not giving equal priority to all the processes. So in asymmetric, we used to follow the master-slave relation. Master is going to have the highest authority when compared with the slaves. So master is the one who is going to control the operating system. Master is the one who is going to distribute the different tasks to different processes. So each and every authority is under the hands of this master who is running the operating system. This is regarding the different types of multiprocessor systems, which are nothing but symmetric multiprocessor and asymmetric multiprocessor. So when we are going to deal with this multiprocessor system, you have to know regarding the processor affinity. So first let me tell you what do you mean by affinity. So affinity in the sense like in simpler way I can tell you understanding. Fine. Affinity is nothing but understanding. So processor affinity means processes has an affinity for the processor on which it is currently running. Suppose here is a processor P1. This is the processor P1. This is uh, this is a process P1 process, and this is the CPU which we call it as a processor. So P1 is running on processor X processor, fine. P1 process is running on X processor. So this process has a very much understanding with this processor, or this processor has an very much understanding with this process. So when suppose for example I'm dealing you operating system. Like you people know me before. Why? Because like I have taught you a computer organization also. Like I have said you, and I have dealt with another subject also. Like you people well aware of me. Like the things, whatever the things that you want to, like you people know well aware of me. But when I teach to any other students, they don't know regarding me. When I teach now second year students, they don't know regarding me, and they can't be much compatible with me. They can't be much flexible with me when compared to you people. You people are very much flexible with me. Why? Because I have known you people and you people know me, so that our flexibility is very much good when compared with the other people. So that understanding, we call it as an affinity. So that understanding between the process and the processor, we call it as an affinity. Affinity between the process and the processor. So here this process P1 is running in the processor X. So this processor X has an affinity towards this processor P1. So this processor knows about this processor P1. Suppose if processor P1 is executing a 201 instruction, then it will like a 202, 203. So many instructions are there. So what is the hierarchy we'll be going to have? So he'll be going to have a secondary memory, and we'll be going to have a main memory, and we'll be going to have a cache memory, and then we'll be going to have the processor, right? So this processor, if it wants any of the instruction, first it will check in the cache memory, fine. What is a cache memory? As you people all well aware of it, a cache is nothing but a fastest memory. Why? Because frequently or repeatedly used instructions are going to be stored in the cache. So suppose if this processor P1 has something data, so like a 200, 201, 202, 203, like that data is there. So everything as we are going to deal much with the P1, the data is going to be stored in the cache memory. So cache memory. So if processor X wants to know regarding the P1, first it will check in the cache memory. If that data is not available in the cache, then only we'll be going for the main memory. So if processor P1 has been checking here for the process P1. So what it will be going to do is, what are the tasks related to processor P1? Even though 200 instruction is currently stored in cache memory, the instructions which are nearby to this instruction, that is 201, 202, 203, are also stored in this cache memory. Why? Because if suppose if I am taking this unit, like if I have said you regarding the process, I need to say regarding the process states, I need to say regarding the um, different process algorithms, fine, different CPU scheduling algorithms. So after one, if I have said you the process, I have to say process states also. In the same manner, if it is executing 200 instruction, after 200, it compulsorily it will be going for 201 instruction. So that the cache, what the cache is going to do is, it will be going to store the instructions nearby 200. That is 199 instruction it will be going to store, and 201 instruction also it is going to store. That is how, so if this X process needs, now 200 is executing, if it needs 201, then we can go in the cache. Why? Because this cache memory will be going to take the nearby instructions, and it is also going to store in the memory. So that is the reason when a process runs on a specific processor, suppose here when process P1 runs on a specific X processor, there are certain effects on the cache memory. What are the effects? In the sense, the data most recently accessed by the processor populate the cache of the processor. Fine. So what is the data we are keep on using, that is going to be stored in the cache memory, as well as successive memory access by the processor are often satisfied in the cache memory. Not only the currently executing instructions, successive instructions are also stored in the cache memory. So now the things regarding the process P1 all are stored in the cache memory. Now the process P1 task completed. Now what I have to do is, I have to take out process P1, and I have to in process P2. So what I have to do, I have to erase all the contents of the cache memory, and I have to fill the details of the process P2 onto the cache memory, right? So this is going to be somewhat difficult. Why? Because now if the process migrates to another processor, now this process is there, this processor, so here P1 process is there. Now P1 process currently executed in X processor. Now this P1 processor, later on it will be going to execute in Y processor. Why? Because it is a multiprocessor system. We need not give guarantee that a process is always executed in the same processor only. We are not going to give that guarantee. Which processor is free, that process has been executed in that processor. So here at the initial stage, X processor is free, so that P1 details are all stored in the X processor. Now Y processor is free. Now P1 is going to store the details in the Y processor. So now the contents of cache memory must be invalidated. Why? Because this X processor P1 has been shifted to Y processor. Now these what are the contents that are stored in the X processor has to be invalidated, and the processor P2 instructions must be repopulated. So processor P2 instructions has to be stored onto the cache. So this invalidating and repopulating cache in the is the most of the symmetric multiprocessing systems try to avoid this migration. Why? Because if we are keep on doing that migration in the sense from one processor to another processor, like it is going to have a creating hectic. This thing we call it as an processor affinity. In short, processor affinity in the sense when a process is executing in a processor, they both will have a better understanding. So that what this processor will do is, processor employs a cache memory. What the cache memory will do is, what are the items that are necessary by that process will be going to stored in that cache memory. Next, when after some time, this processor has terminated due to some IO request, this process X has been terminated. But after completing the IO request, I will not give guarantee that the terminated process will again come to the X process only. Why? Because it is a multiprocessor system. But when it is a single processor system, even though if you have terminated that process, it will again come back to the same process only. But here, as we are employing multiprocessors, next time we can't give guarantee that that process will come to that X processor only. Now suppose if it has allocated to a Y processor, now X processor details should be invalidated. Why? Because previously the X processor is having the process P1 details. Those details has to be invalidated and processor P2 details has to be repopulated. This migration should not be there. What this concept we call it as an processor affinity. So here there are two different types of affinities, soft affinity and the hard affinity. Soft affinity in the sense, it is the policy of attempting to keep a process running on the same processor. So that is soft affinity. So here we'll be going to have the X processor and P1 process. Fine. Here we used to have the Y processor. These two are processors. Fine. Here first P1 executed in X processor. Now it has been migrated to Y processor. This content should be invalidated and processor P2 content should be repopulated. So this concept we call it as a processor affinity. This processor affinity is of two types, hard affinity and the soft affinity. Hard affinity in the sense we'll max it, try that this process P1 will again come to this X process only, but we can't guarantee it. This situation we call it as an soft affinity. But hard affinity allows a process to specify a subset of processes. So hard affinity in the sense, here X process is there and Y process is there. So here, based on the flexibility, we'll be going to choose either X process or Y process. That we call it as an hard affinity. Soft affinity in the sense, we'll be going to make a maximum attempt to make that processor to execute in the previous processor only. But it is not in our hands. Which processor is available, we'll be going with that processor. But when it comes to hard affinity in the sense, this hard affinity will choose a processor among the subset of processors. It is not at all a specific that I want that processor only, I want this processor only. I want that processor, I want this processor is soft affinity. Okay, I want any of the processor among all the subset of processors, I need any of the processor in the sense that we call it as an hard affinity. So this is regarding the processor affinity. And next concept we need to have in this multiprocessor system is load balancing. This is the major important criteria when we are going to talk regarding this multiprocessing. So load balancing in the sense, suppose here we are going to have three processes. So processor P1, processor P2 and processor P3. Fine. Here processor P1 is executing 5 instructions, processing P2 is executing some about 2 process, and processor P3 is executing 10 processes. Fine. Load balancing in the sense, like we have to maintain a balanced load among all the processors. Among all the processors, we have to maintain a load balancing. Here 5 shouldn't be there, here 2 shouldn't be there, here 10 shouldn't be there. So if here it is 5, here it is only 2. So we'll be going to take off 5 and we'll be going to add over here. So here it will be become 5. So or else if here it is getting 7, we can shift one process over here. So it will be going to 6, and here also we can shift one process over here. All the three will be going to have 6, 6, 6. So that is how the load balancing is going to be done. Load balancing is a phenomenon which keeps the workload evenly distributed across all processors in symmetric multiprocessing system. Why we are telling that symmetric multiprocessing system? In the sense, in symmetric multiprocessor systems only, we'll be going to have the operating system. This operating system copy will be in all the systems, so that each system can communicate with one another. That's the reason why we are specifying here is symmetric multiprocessing systems. So load in the sense here 5 5 5 5 20 should be there, but it's not like here 10, here 2, here 1, here 9. It shouldn't be like that. So load balancing in the sense distributing the load equally among all the processors in symmetric multiprocessor system. Make a note of it, but not an asymmetric multiprocessor system. So where each process has its own private queue and which are eligible to execute. Fine. Each processor has their own tasks, so they'll be going to execute their own task. But here what they'll be going to share is they'll be going to share the memory and they'll be going to share the IO devices. These are in common for all the systems so that they can communicate very much easily. So here it is important to keep the workload balanced. So as I have said you, the workload should be balanced between all the processes. So to fully utilize the benefits of having more than one processor, else one or more processor will sit idle while other process is having the higher workloads. That shouldn't be there. Here if you have seen in the sense, here this process is having the workload of 10 while this process is having the workload of 2, but this shouldn't be happen when you are going to talk regarding this symmetric multiprocessor system. So load balancing is very very important. We have to keep a balanced load among all the processors who are executing. So that is the load balancing. These are the important concepts you have to learn in this multiprocessor scheduling. So there are two general approaches of load balancing. What is that two general approaches? In the sense, push migration and pull migration. Push migration in the sense, like you will be going to have a task. Suppose you will be going to have different tasks, and push migration in the sense here are 5 workload, 2 workload, 0 workload, 10 workload is there. So all these are processor P1, P2, P3 and P4. Push migration in the sense it finds an imbalance. If the processor, if the operating system finds an imbalance, like what it has to do is it has to do the balancing. How it will be going to do the balancing? In the sense, by pushing the workload to the ideal system. Here now it will be 5 and here it will be 5. So by pushing the workload to the ideal system, the load is going to be balanced. And pull migration. Pull migration occurs when pull migration in the sense, here you will be going to have the CPU. CPU is idle now. So idle in the sense, now what CPU will do is this CPU will take a task from waiting process and it will be going to execute. So CPU will pull the task from waiting process, but here we are going to push the task from one processor to another process in order to have the balanced workload among the processors. So this is pushing of workload from one processor to another processor. Pull in the sense, when the CPU is idle, what it will be going to do is it will be going to pull the task which is there in the waiting state. When the processor will enter into the waiting state, if any that processor needs any sort of IO devices, and if the completion of that process is not completed, then we'll be going to make the process to wait in the idle state. At that situation of time, the CPU is going to pull a waiting task from a busy processor for its execution. So these are the two different types of migrations: push migration and the pull migration. These two comes under the load balancing. Load balancing is nothing but, in simply we have to say that we have to maintain equal workload for all the processors. How will we going to do? In the sense, two methods: pull migration and push migration. Pull migration in the sense, the CPU is idle, it is going to pull the task from the waiting state which are under execution. Push migration in the sense, if any processor is said to be of less workload, we are pushing the load to that processor from the heavy workload to the less workload. So that is the load balancing in which we have pull migration and the push migration. And next comes to the advantages of multiprocessor systems. The systems, first advantage is these systems are more reliable systems. Why? Because even if one processor fails, like we can do with the remaining, suppose if you are having five processors, this processor has been failed. With the help of this remaining four processors, we can complete the task. So the system is more reliable. Throughput is enhanced. Throughput is nothing but number of instructions executed per unit time is very high. Why? Because we are employing many processors, not a single processor, so that the throughput is going to be high. It is more economic systems. Why we are going to say that it is more economic? In the sense, these multiprocessor systems share a common memory, and they're going to share a common resources. They'll be going to share a common bus. But when it comes to the all the things are going to be shared by a multiprocessor system. But when it comes to the single processor system, for each and every process, we have to employ a separate memory, we have to employ a separate resources, we have to employ a separate bus system for each and every processor. But when it comes to the multiprocessor, like we can employ on a group, like we need not keep individual memory, individual buses, individual resources to each and every processor. All will share a common resources. So these are the major advantages in the multiprocessor system. And we also have the disadvantages too. What is the first disadvantage? Is increased expense. Why it is an increased expense? In the sense, although these multiprocessor systems are cheaper in the long run than using multi-computer systems, still they are quite expensive. Why? Because it is much cheaper to buy a single processor system than a multiprocessor system. They are a little bit expensive. Complicated operating system required. Why? Because if we are going to have many number of processors, process P1, process P2, process P3. So it is much complicated to schedule the processes. So among all the different multiprocessor systems, scheduling is a bit difficult. So it is going to have the operating system is going to be complicated, and large memory required. So all are going to share the common memory. So memory is going to be more. The memory changes are going to be more. Storing the contents onto the memory or more. So that we need a large amount of memory. So these are the drawbacks you will be going to face in the multiprocessor systems. So this is how we'll be going to have the multiprocessor systems or multiprocessor scheduling. So what we have seen, the multiprocessors in the sense, many number of processors will be there. What are the two different types? Symmetric multiprocessor and asymmetric. Symmetric in the sense, like every processor used to have the same operating system. They are connected in pair to pair. When it comes to the asymmetric system, master and slave relation will be there. So master is going to have the highest authority. Like whatever the master is saying, the slave have to abide that one. And what are the things we have seen? processor affinity. Affinity in the sense understanding between the processor and a process, that we are having two, hard affinity and soft affinity. Soft affinity in the sense, once a processor has been allocated to a process, we'll maximum try for the process to allocate to the same processor again, so that, but we can't, it is not in our hands. That is soft affinity. When it comes to hard affinity, it is not making any specific, but it is going to say from the subset of the processors, it is going to pick any of the processor. Next one is load balancing. So balancing of load among the processors equally is known as load balancing. Push migration and pull is the two different types of load balancing. Push in the sense, when any process is having the highest load and another processor is having the lowest load, we are pushing the load from highest load to the lowest load. Pull migration is nothing but if a processor is in ideal state, it is going to pull the task from the waiting state which is under execution. And what are the advantages, disadvantages we have seen. So this is regarding the multiprocessor scheduling. So that's all for today, students, and we'll be going to meet in the next class. Thank you all. Have a nice day.